We all have those bad habits that hold us back from doing our best and drain productivity. Stephanie Vermeulen, author of EQ, Emotional Intelligence for Everyone, joins me now in studio to discuss breaking bad habits. Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Katlego. I appreciate it.
Stephanie, when people think of emotional intelligence, we often think about relationships with people.
Yes.
But how much of it is with yourself?
I would put a percentage of about 98% of it is oneself.
Yes.
We often think it's got to do with other people, that
Yes.
they're not cooperative, or we can't get there, they don't have the intelligence, or we always blame other people. But it is in fact, how do I go about getting their cooperation? And when I realize that, then life becomes a lot easier, because we've got dozens of reactions that we can use, but we only tend to use a small amount, 2 or 3 of our consistent habits. And that's what often gets us in trouble, because it's not one size fits all. Everybody's got buttons you can push to get a good reaction and a bad reaction. So it's about looking at what reaction am I getting. A bad reaction. Okay, I can change my tactic,
right,
or I can change my strategy here. So it's not about being false at all. There are many reactions we can use. The one thing we tend to forget to use in business is humor. And
Yes.
so we're all very serious about business. And I don't know, somebody spread this rumor that we had to be serious
About business.
and that it has to be, something that's very, and you never have fun. And in fact, people are discouraged from having fun.
Yes.
When we're having fun, our energy is released. And so if we're having fun, we're having a fun interaction, we usually actually come out with a solution that is very different from when we're all being terribly serious about it. So I often encourage people to use humor in business because it is so powerful. And it is also something that sort of lightens the load and allows people to be more creative. And today it's thought that creativity is probably much more important than any other skill.
Yes.
But we seldom encourage that in our day-to-day business lives. We do the mundane things.
Steph, we're talking about bad habits and breaking them
Yes.
today.
Yes.
How do we form our habits?
Habits are simply formed and are very easy to form just by doing the same thing over and over again. If you do it enough times, and enough times isn't 100 times,
right,
enough times maybe 2 or 3 times, if it's something that has appeased us when we've been feeling rotten. Okay. So if we've been upset or angry and we do something, lots of the example lots of people know is some people like to eat something, particularly something sweet.
Chocolate.
Or chocolate or something like that. And if you do that enough times, then you start to associate that activity with feeling good.
Right.
Now, it's not just the action of having a piece of chocolate, it's what that activity or thing does in our brain. Anything that releases the brain reward system, and the brain reward system was to get us to do more of the things that would keep us alive. So more of the things that would keep us alive would be to go and look for food, for example, to go, the hunting and gathering sort of thing, as it were. So the human motivation is quite an interesting thing, because it's not about getting the reward. It's actually the opposite. It's about anticipating the reward that sets our brain chemistry going, and the reward chemical is there. So most people aren't necessarily, let's say, addicted to shopping. They're addicted to what they're anticipating going to buy. The problem is, for hunters and gatherers, as soon as you found the berries and you sat down to eat them, the brain chemistry switches off. So fundamentally, anything that we get that we think is a reward turns out to be disappointing. So we need more of it.
So we go back.
And we go back. And it's the fun part is anticipating. Some people like to do things that involve speed, for example, or risk, or the harem-scarum roller coaster type stuff, because it gets their brain chemistry going. Then they go, actually, that made me feel a lot better, so they go back for more. Yeah. So we've got a huge range of what we call soft addictions that are habits that we've gotten into because we think they make us feel better. And spending money, obviously, is a big one, which is why so many people in this country are in huge, not in debt, but over-indebted is the problem. Yes. And they keep spending in full knowledge that they're actually digging a deeper hole, because as soon as they see the hole that they're in, the credit card statement comes in, for example, they go, oh, problem, and the bad feeling running start, what do we do to appease ourselves? We start to anticipate, what am I going to buy next? And even people who in debt rehab, they know the habit has got them into this problem, will keep one facility open just in case they need some feel good. So our habits we run into a lot of trouble with our habits. They're often time wasters, they cost us money. Now shopping is everything that normal people need to do every now and then. It's when we start to obsess about it and it starts to get us into trouble that it becomes what we call these soft addictions, because they're not to do with chemicals like alcohol or drugs, but they're as powerful because they're to do with brain chemistry. And Steph, that makes them really powerful.
Sure, this is really interesting because one of my bad habits is procrastination.
Okay.
And I'd like to think a lot of other people have the exact same bad habit.
I would say probably most people have that bad habit of procrastination.
How do you get over such a habit?
We need to start, any habit, we need to be very conscious of what we're doing.
Okay.
So while we're procrastinating, we're usually beating ourselves up. So if I'm procrastinating, then I know that there's either something I don't want to do, because it's mundane and boring, and there's much more exciting as playing computer backgammon or something like that over and over and over again. Or otherwise, it might be something that I'm afraid of. It's something new, and I'm afraid of it. So instead of sitting there, then procrastinating, doing whatever you're doing, lots of people play free cell and card games and all sorts of things.
Social media,
and
Facebook.
Social media, and all of those things have become habits that have made us feel good because they've gotten the brain chemistry going sufficiently so we don't then have to face this fear or something that we don't want to do. So when we're doing it, instead of beating ourselves up all the time, get to it, get to it, get to it, then we say to ourselves, okay, how's this helping me to actually get to what I need to? Why am I not? Oh, I don't like doing that. Okay, I've got no energy for it. Okay, so usually why we procrastinate is because then the deadline looms and then the panic sets in. Oh, now we've got to get to it. Now there's no room for fear or don't want or any of those things at all. You just got to get to it. So often the procrastination has helped us get rid of the emotions that are actually blocking us, either inhibiting our thinking, that's too boring to tackle, or fear also, huge inhibitor in terms of our thinking, so that things can flow. Lots of people who have a certain type that do everything at the last minute will often believe that that's when they get most creative.
Yes,
and
I work well under pressure.
All of those things, which puts us under an enormous amount of stress, but it also works because it clears all of that emotion. So instead we can look at, okay, if it's not something that I want to do, is this something that I don't want to do? Is it my job? Because if it's something I don't want to do, then I need to actually look at, why have I chosen this as a job? Because today we've got dozens of possibilities that we can choose, and we can change all the time. We can keep reinventing ourselves, because that's the nature of this disruptive revolution that we're living. So, okay, I don't like doing it. 80% of that is my job, and so I need to make a change. If it's fear, anytime we do something new, we're going to be afraid. So we go, okay, I am afraid, and this is making me nervous, and maybe proven me to be not as competent as I thought. All of those fears that we have, or lots of the worst fears that might cause me to lose my job, which is seldom true. And then we tackle that fear. So we go, okay, we challenge that fear. Is it true? Is it valid? Is this helping? So you live through your bad habits consciously. Any bad habit, whether it's a social media addiction or a soft addiction, or whether it's procrastination, which I think most people suffer from. So the idea of us having to be productive for 8 hours a day is a meme that comes from the industrial era. You get paid to do 8 hours work, so therefore you must sit at your desk.
Not that you're very productive during that time.
And it's silly to expect ourselves to be. We can't come up with great ideas in 8 hours, and that's the time. We come up with great ideas when our mind is actually flowing. Sometimes playing a game of free cell could actually just relieve the thinking work that's not helping, and we just go offline for a bit, and sometimes our best ideas come. Some people say their best ideas come in the shower because they're not thinking about anything else. And so we need to also change the way that we're working. We're not wanting to tackle something, we need to look at why. And be conscious about that. Then we can go, okay, it's not what I like to do, this is 10% of my job, let's just get to it, and maybe even build yourself in a reward. Once I've done this, then I can go and do that, because that helps. So it's dealing with our bad habits realistically holistically and
Yes.
consciously, and what our world today would call mindfully. And
Yes.
then we can tackle them and deal with them, rather than pretending to ourselves, no, I'll get to it, 'cause that just frustrates us.
Steph, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure, and all the best in your work.
Thank you very much, Katlego. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And that was Stephanie Vermeulen, author of EQ Emotional Intelligence for Everyone.